After our successful Rhine River cruise experience in the summer of 2015, Diana and I decided to do another cruise with the AMA Waterways organization. This time we selected the Tulip Time cruise. The Tulip Time cruise started in Amsterdam and made a loop around the waterways of the Netherlands and venturing into Belgium before returning to Amsterdam. The trip was for 8 nights with visits to Volendam, Arnhem, Antwerp, Ghent, Bruges, Wilhelmstad, and Kinderjik. The climax ending of the tour was a return to Amsterdam and a visit to the famous Keukenhof Gardens, where 7 million tulips and flowering bulbs are displayed. We decided to extend our tour by spending some time in and around Amsterdam both before and after the cruise on the AMAStella. We flew from Columbus to Detroit and then overnight to Amsterdam. Although we spent time in Amsterdam both before and after our cruise, I will mess with the chronology a bit and show some Amsterdam sights and then end with the cruise. We had a reservation at the Motel 1 in Amsterdam. We had stayed at other Motel 1s in Germany the preceding summer and appreciated the clean but small rooms, excellent friendly staff members, good breakfast, and modest prices. I like to take advantage of the Google Maps street views when planning a trip. So, long before we left home, I knew that we could take a 15-minute train ride to the Rai station and then make a 2-block walk to Motel 1. I also knew that Amsterdam has excellent public transportation and that tram number 4 passes by Motel 1 and travels to the Amsterdam Central train station. The Central station provides both walking and public transportation access to everything of interest in and around Amsterdam. So, once we arrived at the Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, we got a ticket to the Rai station, got some help from a friendly ticket agent and bought an Amsterdam travel pass, and then found our way to Motel 1. As I mentioned, we had a couple of days in Amsterdam before and after the cruise, but I will talk about our time in Amsterdam first. By now you probably know that I'm a fan of previewing coming attractions before a trip. For several months before our Tulip Time trip, I frequently switched my computer display to view live webcam reviews of the Amsterdam Dam Plaza. It was fun to see in front of us the same scenes that I'd been watching from my home computer. Amsterdam has a seemingly endless supply of museums to amaze or amuse the tourists. As is our habit when visiting a city that is new to us, we ride the hop-on, hop-off bus, which in Amsterdam is linked to hop-on and hop-off canal boats. We ride it around the loops to get a feel for what is where. An aerial view of Amsterdam shows a complicated array of canals and streets. Back when Amsterdam was started, there was no thought of arranging things on a nice rectilinear grid. Given the intricate network of canals, it's not surprising that the hop-on, hop-off uses both buses and canal boats. We decided to skip some of the most popular tourist spots in Amsterdam, like the Heineken Experience, or the Sex Museum, or the Anne Frank House. We walked by the Anne Frank House on the way between hopping on and hopping off, and the line was at least 2 blocks long. One day it looked like rain. By the way, the Netherlands is pretty far north, and the typical weather for April is wonderful if you are a tulip producer, lots of extended cool weather, but it's not full of warm sunny days, so an inside experience seemed desirable. The view from our 9th floor window at Motel 1 showed that there were some rainstorms moving through the area. Looking on the city map, we spotted something which said, in English, Tropical Museum. It was near the zoo. What would you expect? We took tram number 4 to the Rembrandt Park and switched to tram number 9 and went off to the Tropen Museum. It was not at all what we expected. Back in the days when the Dutch East India Company ruled a significant part of the world, they controlled a lot of colonies that were in the tropics. The Tropen Museum featured that period of Dutch history. The museum is more of an anthropological and cultural museum than anything else. As museums go, it was an amazing place, with some of the most sophisticated displays we have seen anywhere. Different parts of the museum were dedicated to different geographical areas. At one time, the Dutch had many colonies around the world, and the Tropen Museum has exhibits from many of those areas, including Africa, India, and what was known as the Netherlands East Indies. The collection is extensive, and you could probably spend more than one day investigating the details shown. In this exhibit, a touchscreen with a computer-animated figure allows you to learn about a fabric merchant from one of the colonies. One section was dedicated to musical instruments. By selecting a picture on a touchscreen of an instrument that was in the display case in front of you, you could hear that instrument being played. The Tropen Museum was not on our original schedule, but it proved to be an excellent way to avoid the afternoon Amsterdam rain showers. We had heard about the flower auction near Amsterdam and decided to make it one of our side trips while we were in the area. We checked at the information building near the central station, and we were told what bus to take. We found the bus and checked with the driver and verified that yes, this bus went to the flower auction. So off we went on an interesting hour-long bus ride and enjoyed viewing the local scenery. We also frequently took deep breaths in an attempt to help the bus squeeze through impossibly narrow streets, and we bit our knuckles when we were sure that there was no way the bus would miss that car or bicycle or sign. The thing no one had told us was that the auction runs from 6:30 to 9 in the morning, and we arrived there around 10. Well, we decided to try another day, and Diana made sure we were up early in the morning for another bus ride. This time, we arrived in time to see this amazing facility. The Netherlands is the most important importer and exporter of flowers in the world. More than half of all the world's flowers pass through the Amsterdam flower auction. Many of the flowers come from the Netherlands, but a great deal of the supply comes from Africa, Latin America, and countries surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. Also, Flora Holland, which is the formal name of the place, is the international trade platform. The services provided and the international purchasing power here attracts growers from all over the world. Time is money, and this is certainly true in the flower business. The devaluation of flowers can be as high as 15% per day, so speed is critical. The journey from the grower to your living room must be as short as possible. And, as you will soon see in some video clips I made with my Nikon S9900 digital camera, speed is the word of the day. As you enter the facility, you follow a very long path that's high above the auction, and it provides a good view of the activity. The long walkway passes the auction room, makes a U-turn, and then returns on the other side. Flora Holland has a huge space under roof. Imagine a room the size of a football field. Then imagine 10 football fields. Then imagine 100 football fields. Now imagine a facility that is over 200 football fields in area. Plants arrive at the facility and are loaded onto carts that move around on automated tracks. The carts are labeled with identification tags, and then people running around on miniature electric train engines hook onto the carts and move them onto the auction area. Photographs of samples from each batch of plants are taken. The pictures are displayed on large screens at one end of the auction room. This is like a large auditorium with computer terminals at each seat. The buyers watch the screen as each batch of flowers comes through. A large, backwards-moving clock gives buyers the opportunity to make a bid. This happens at a very high speed, faster than any other auction I've ever seen. The bidders have to be very focused to judge the exact price point they bid for flowers. As soon as the bidding is completed for each batch of flowers, the carts have to be reorganized so that every batch of flowers can be moved to the shipping area for distribution to the winning bidder. All of this takes place at an amazing speed. It appears to be controlled chaos. After the carts full of plants have been reorganized, they're sent off in long trains to the shipping department. The magnitude of importing, selling, and shipping of flowers is quite amazing, and we were glad to get the chance to visit Flora Holland. Another side trip we made from Amsterdam was to Zandam, or Zonschans. We saw in the local tourist guide brochures that tours were available by reservation. When we asked at the desk at Motel 1 about making a reservation, a nice man told us exactly how to get there by taking a local bus. This was excellent advice. Instead of paying 60 euros for a tour and sticking with a fixed schedule, we paid 5 euros for a bus ride. Zonschans is an area that is packed with museums, wooden windmills, barns, and houses built in the typically Dutch wooden architectural style. Historic buildings have been relocated there piece by piece since 1961. There are traditional crafts being demonstrated, such as clog and cheese making, and there are windmills and traditional buildings. The place is a little touristy, but there is an excellent museum that is well worth a visit. The museum is dedicated to showing the history of the Zandam area. The museum incorporates the latest in high-tech displays. There were audio guides to hang around your neck and wave in front of special locations on displays and then listen to a narration. The Zandam area has a long history of successful businesses and factories, and these were very well explained. At one point, the lights dimmed and a multimedia show took over the room. The walls of the museum hold many original paintings featuring pictures of factories and historical scenes from the area. Many local factory owners became very wealthy, and they enjoyed the fruits of their labor. Some exhibits showed household items from the successful factory owners. Models of ships show how the local products were transported around the world. Some of the displays show great skill in production, such as this model steam engine. One local company was a leader in producing chocolate and chocolate-related products. A portion of a chocolate factory is in operation in this museum. You may remember the old TV show where Lucy and Ethel are trying to keep up with a chocolate factory assembly line. Well, here they have a number of games set up where you can try to see if you're fast enough to get a job at the factory. In the historic village next to the museum, there are a number of buildings to tour. One of them is set up as a wooden shoe factory, and here you can see wooden shoes being made. Wooden shoes are made for every occupation, function, and special occasion. Once you see how the shoes are made, you can select a pair or two for yourself. Did I mention that this place was a little touristy? You can wander around the village and explore the different houses and displays. Not a bad way to spend an afternoon. Zaandam is about an hour's bus ride from Amsterdam. Okay, it's time for the cruise. The number 4 tram took us from Motel 1 to the central station. One side of the station is on the riverfront, and it is a short walk to the docks where the riverboats gather. River cruises are increasingly popular, and it's hard to find a place to dock in places like Amsterdam, so the boats are sometimes tied together. We were scheduled to cruise on the AMAStella. The summer before, we did a Rhine River cruise on another AMA Waterways boat. We enjoyed the service on that trip so much that we decided to stick with AMA Waterways, and we were not disappointed. By the way, although the AMAStella is brand new, this was only the AMAStella's 4th cruise, the boat layout is very similar to the AMASerto on which we did the Rhine River cruise the previous summer. The AMAStella did have the latest technology systems installed in the cabins. Cruising on these boats is like being on a moving 4-star hotel. Our room was very nice and had a small balcony. That would have been more important in the warmer weather. The room had a new info system which included a TV with one channel reserved for a bow camera. The info system included a computer with a stupid Apple operating system, and internet service was available whenever the boat was in range of a signal, which on this trip was pretty much always. There was a nice bath and shower. Frequently, when we returned to the room, we discovered some kind of towel critter was visiting us. The AMAStella has a capacity of 150 passengers, but there were only 125 on this cruise. There are 50 crew members, 10 of who are chefs, so as you can imagine, the service is excellent. We gathered in the lounge for introductions to the cruise director and crew. We paid attention to the standard safety presentation. There's no lifeboat drill, since there are no lifeboats. These boats rarely get far from land. We were surprised to discover that our favorite waiter from last summer's cruise, Darian, was now serving on the AMAStella. The dining room has open seating, but folks tend to sit near the same place at each meal. We soon knew some of our fellow passengers, and Darian and the other wait staff soon knew and delivered what we liked as soon as they saw us coming. Our first evening meal was in a special room called the Chef's Table. Passengers can sign up for a visit to the Chef's Table sometime during the cruise. We were shown a menu with a large list of foods, but before we were done, we received a small portion of each thing that the chef specially designed for these meals. The next day, we were scheduled to take the AMAStella to Volendam and Edam. Off we went, but when we got to one of the locks, it was determined that the wait line was much too long. So, back to Amsterdam, and then by bus to Volendam. We had a walking tour of the old quarter's very old houses, canals, bridges, and churches. For these tours, our group was supplied with what they call a quiet box, a thing that hangs around your neck, and you can listen to your own tour guide as you walk along. This can be handy in areas where there are many groups with tour guides chattering away in different languages. The next day our boat docked at Arnhem. For Europeans of the region, this was the site of the second most famous battle of the Second World War. Shortly after the D-Day invasion, a second invasion, led by the British General Montgomery, was supposed to open up a second front. We don't hear much about it in the U.S. because it involved troops from Britain, Canada, and Poland. Only one U.S. soldier, who fought with a Polish unit, was involved. The whole thing was a disaster for the Allies. Of the 20,000 troops, thousands were killed and captured, and less half survived the retreat. Montgomery claimed that the invasion was 90% successful, which tells something about that guy. Anyway, we toured a cemetery in a beautiful park-like setting and then visited a very interesting museum. There were lots of stories about how the locals sheltered and aided Allied soldiers. Every year, there's a moving service where all of the local children place flowers on the graves in memory of troops that fought on their behalf. If you have seen the movie A Bridge Too Far, you will know the story. The AMAStella then navigated a branch of the Rhine River and went on to Belgium, where we had a walking tour of Antwerp. The next stop was Ghent. We also took the optional tour to Bruges, a well-preserved medieval city. There were many things to see along the way, and I took a lot of pictures. You'll be happy to know I will not try to show all of them to you here. The Belgians have a number of things to be proud of, including chocolate, lace, and beer. And they're eager to tell you that what you call French fries actually came from Belgium. During one of the wars, one tired soldier liked these fried potatoes and, because he thought he was in France, gave them the wrong name. Our cruise traveled on through the Dutch region of Zeeland, home to one of the world's most complex engineering projects. Most people have heard the legend of the little Dutch boy who saved the country by holding his finger in the dike. It turns out that for hundreds of years the Dutch have been building dikes to keep out the ocean and to increase the size of the country. Much of the country is below sea level. As a matter of fact, the Amsterdam airport is actually more than 20 feet below sea level. We visited Wilhelmstad, a 400-year-old town where, by a special arrangement, we were treated to an organ concert at the oldest Protestant church in the Netherlands. We also visited Kindertje, a lovely village with the country's greatest concentration of historic windmills. The AMAStella then returned to Amsterdam, and the following day we had the highlight of the Tulip Time tour, a trip to Keukenhof, the famous Tulip Gardens. The main reason for the trip was to see the tulips. We were very lucky and had good weather for our visit to Keukenhof. Here are about 100 of my favorite Keukenhof pictures.